Sometimes when things go wrong, you can't blame life. Cause when you shot your shot, what was your aim like? What were you targeting? Cause if it ain't right, and you still go with it, then that is on you. It's on you, it's on you, it's on you.
What's going on, you guys? This is Romi and Sam, and you are listening to the Mindset Rebooted podcast.
And if you are a first-time listener, thank you so much for stopping by. Here on the Mindset Rebooted podcast, we like to have conversations that help us to elevate the way we think. And what that means is that we have old ways of thinking that have held us back in the past, and we like to take on new ways of thinking that help us to maximize our full potential and to become the best versions of ourselves.
And I know that was a lot, but if you get any value from this episode today, please share this with one person so we could help more people.
Yes, and today we are going to be talking about unlearning what we've learned in life, not everything that we've learned in life, but the benefits of unlearning, displacing and replacing. What does that all mean? It means that, like we said in the show opener, there's a whole bunch of different things that we've learned, and we need to learn to unlearn those things because it's been holding us back. So this coincides with exactly what the show is about, but we're gonna give you some specific examples of different things that we have all learned that has kind of hindered us, and the people who have benefited from unlearning those things and replacing it with things that are actually valuable.
Real quick, before we start, I just want to say we are in the great outdoors, so it's very different. We're not in studio, quote unquote, anymore. And so it's been really cool. I hope if you're watching the video that you enjoyed the new scenery right behind us.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it specifically.
Right. So let's get into it. What are some examples of things that we've learned incorrectly that we want to unlearn and learn a new way?
Well, yeah, for example, I just finished having a conversation the other day with somebody that someone was focused on how many years of experience they had in doing a specific thing. And they thought that that was how you measure whether they were better or further ahead in comparison with their cohorts in that specific field. And that's such a huge mistake a lot of us make. I know a lot of us think that when we spend a lot of time doing something that we're automatically experts. But I'm here to tell you that sometimes it just means that you have become an expert in doing things wrong, right? You can do something for a long time. And if you have not learned the proper way to do things, or if you've developed a whole bunch of bad habits, doing it that way for 15, 20 years just means it's gonna be harder to unlearn. So perfect example is like when I was in the Navy, there were plenty of people who I served with who had been in for years. They were ahead of me in rank, and I ended up flying through the ranks pretty fast. And some people told me how I was gonna be at these lower ranks for a long time based on their personal experience, and how based on their experiences, you know, they were just so far ahead of me. But what I noticed was that they were so stuck in their ways and how they did things that they didn't even care to learn new things. They didn't care to actually investigate certain things that were taught to them over time. And so you could see where they were pretty stalled in their actual growth. They just kept doing things for a long period of time, and they just thought to themselves, hey, this is just how it's always been done. And so one of the things that we have to unlearn is that just because something's been done a certain way for a long time, it doesn't make it right. I personally was able to learn the ins and outs of certain programs. I was able to understand how I could communicate better with fellow sailors. All of those things helped me to get high evaluations. I studied for different advancement exams, and it gave me favor in terms of being able to move at a rapid rate through the ranks. And when I ended up passing a lot of these people who told me specifically, hey, you're gonna be doing this for a while, or I have more experience than you in this, they were pretty much humbled, because what they thought was the norm, they realized quickly that it doesn't have to be that way in order for you to be successful. So just to sum up what I just said, we need to unlearn the idea that experience is the true indicator of how much knowledge or how effective you are, because being experienced in doing a whole bunch of different things for a long time doesn't mean that. It's, are you doing it smartly, and are you doing it correctly? How efficient and effective are you, essentially?
It comes down to realizing that things change over time. As you mentioned, if you've been doing something for 15 years the same way you did it 15 years ago, then you are out of date. You know, in medicine, new information always coming out, new discoveries, better equipment. And so as a professional in medicine, they have to always study and they always have to learn new things and unlearn, oh, that old practice we used to do is no longer effective. It is obsolete, we need to change our practice, right? Same with dancing. Like people will say, I've taught lessons for X amount of years, I've been at this studio forever. Well, congratulations, first off, that's great that you had a job that long. Second off, like the way that you've been teaching, if you've been teaching the exact same way you taught it 15 years ago, you cannot communicate with the younger generation. You cannot relate with them. And that's just the natural occurrence of time. So the thing to unlearn, like you said, you have to unlearn the tradition that you could stay in tradition, if that makes sense. You have to break tradition to become more effective.
Yeah, exactly. And tradition or culture is like, it's a beautiful thing. It's just that when we don't understand the purposes behind that and we are so stagnant in those things, it stunts our growth. And so I do want to point that out because I do want people to understand that tradition is still a beautiful thing, but just be able to decipher when you need to kind of do things differently. Another thing that we can unlearn is, for example, in school, a lot of us, we've been taught like, hey, you know, writing, it needs to be something that, you know, you write a paper and you have to have a certain word count. You have to essentially, what did you say? You said pad the...
Yeah, you have to pad the numbers, or you have to pad the words to meet the word count. Something like that. Essentially, you had to add more BS on your paper so that you could just fulfill your page count and your number count, right? My personal experience, that's how it was for me. If you were in advanced studies, honors, AVID, MSA, which is math, science, you know, all that, like they always were, oh, you have to write 5 pages or whatever. And it's like, why? Why do we have to write 5 pages? And then you get to college, why do I have to write 10 pages? When you know I know the content, when you know I verbally could speak on it, why do you require me to write a 20-page paper on it just because it's a number that we've always done? It doesn't make any sense. It's not really, and it made things harder for me when I got into the workforce to be an effective communicator, because now I was trained to write extra fluff before I asked for stuff.
Correct.
Right, and I didn't mean to rhyme, but that goes with the time.
Hey,
I'm sorry.
Come on now. Come on now.
But like one of my pet peeves is that someone will give me a full-on essay of, oh, like this is why I need this, or oh, this is our background, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, get to the point, what do you want from me? Right. How can I help you? And I've learned that in a lot of my interaction with working people is that, hey, I need this is why I need it, can you do it? Those 3 parts, and it's good.
Yeah, no, that's great, because even when I ended up, you know, being, you know, a working professional, I had been, I don't want to say scolded, but I had been, you know, pretty much corrected by certain people. It's like, hey, look at how you're drafting your emails. You're writing it like you're writing an essay, and to be honest with you, the people that you're talking to, they don't have time to read all of that. Like, get to it, right? And it wasn't until I ended up going to school for business that I even understood that in the business world, there was a different structure for how things are written. And you have to realize who your audience is. Some people, they're just quick readers. They don't have that much time. So if you're communicating with them, 1, know who they are, and 2, give it to them in quick, digestible bullets. You know, those are the things that I ended up having to learn. I had to unlearn, oh yeah, let me do this essay format with this intro and all of this body, and add this abstract in the beginning, and then add this conclusion in the end, and here's this and here's that. People don't have time to read all of that. They're literally just looking for the meat and potatoes. That's how you become an effective communicator, is understanding your audience and being able to give them the information they need in an understandable way and in a digestible way. So many people's attention span is so short. So going on and in an email, it's just not really the proper thing to do. You know, so that was something that I had to unlearn, specifically because my father's a writer. He's a teacher. He was teaching me how to write since I was younger. And again, you were talking about the whole padding the word count thing, all those requirements for essays and things like that. It ended up being something that, you know, I thought was standard, but that's just academia. And so understanding how the world works is essentially what we need to do.
Yeah, and I want to kind of expand on this whole communication part, right? That's essentially what we're talking about. It also goes back to when you're teaching, right? Because when you're writing, you're essentially communicating information that you know to someone else. You're teaching them something that you know that they don't know, right? If you are trying to teach something and it is not simple, then that means you don't know it enough. You don't know it well enough to keep it simple. And that's something that it's very humbling when you get caught. Someone calls you out on it. It's like, what's all this extra fluff? Yeah, and then going back to writing, how many adverbs do you have in there? Do you really need all these adverbs that he ran quickly? Well, running is quick already. You don't really need that, right? Yes, it sounds fancy, but again, that's because we're used to writing a lot, padding the numbers. We're used to reading novels where all those settings, they develop the setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have to add that stuff. But when we're just trying to communicate, we don't have to really develop a setting. We just need to say, this is what I need, this is why, can you do it?
A lot of you can relate to who are working professionals. I think something that we need to unlearn is being super dependent on government or employers. I know we weren't talking about that in pre-show, but it came to my mind because I've seen a lot of people who they've put all their eggs in one basket. All they're focused on, or all they're taught is, hey, you work for 40 years, you just bank on getting your 401k, bank on getting Social Security, bank on the government doing this for you, bank on that. And we've seen cases like during the financial crisis, the Great Recession, back in the 2008 timeframe, where all of that stuff just went out the window. A lot of people who were banking on different things quickly realized that the people that they were trusting to secure their future for them pretty much did a poor job in doing that. And so one thing that I've unlearned and had to newly learn is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Learn other opportunities to invest your time and your money so that if one thing does fall through, you are still able to stand on your own two and provide for your loved ones because you have the means to do it.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the puppy. There's the benefits of recording outside in the park. Puppies and geese are running around. But no, I really like that fact that you're touching on this pack. Back then, we had to learn one specialty to make a living. That's what it was required, because you just get a job, you're good. But things change, right? So again, going back to our first thing to unlearn, what we learned years ago does not apply now. We all are multifaceted people. Back then, just 15, 20 years ago, if you listen to rock or metal music, that's all you listen to. You listen to hip hop, that's all you listen to, or pop, right? But now we're all, like the newer generation, they're remixing all of them together. Like you hear a heavy metal backtrack on top of a pop vocals and vice versa. And so we're constantly changing. So if there's anything that I just want everyone to take away is that we need to recognize we change with times, and to stay effective is to stay with the times.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly don't have as much to contribute to this conversation anymore. What about you, man?
I'm pretty good. I think we hit a lot of stuff, and it's very, very quick and very punchy. I hope this helped out a lot of people.
Yeah, very quick and very punchy. Just to summarize everything that we said, listen, we've learned a lot of stuff. Some of those different things have kind of set us up for failure. And so we need to displace and replace, unlearning some of the bad habits and taking on new skill sets and new ways of thinking so that we can become the best versions of ourselves, much like what the show is about. So if you got great value out of that, make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast, and please, please, please share this with someone else so that they can get great value out of this content. Make sure you follow the Mindset Rebooted podcast on all social media platforms, really, and make sure that you follow me personally. My handle is right there in the description, and you can follow Romi Sunga. His handle is there as well. And that's everything we got for today. We had a great conversation with you, and until next time, Mindset Rebooted.
Sometimes when things go wrong, you can't blame life. Cause when you shot your shot, what was your aim like? What were you targeting? Cause if it ain't right, and you still go with it, then that is on you.